from the estate in Florida that Bradley Edwards just identified is in possession of the Epstein birthday book, which is supposed to contain a letter that bears Donald Trump's name. Is it possible that the Justice Department could just subpoena that first thing tomorrow morning, get possession of it, and no one would ever see it?
That is possible. It is also possible that they actually have it already. You remember that the Department of Justice has said that they have 30 gigabytes of information pursuant to this investigation. Remember, this case went to trial. So there's been a thorough investigation before today. And so we don't know the full complement of everything they have. I should also point out, in addition to the point that your guest made, which was just wonderful, is that what you could subpoena from the estate is not just the birthday book, but if it's the estate of Jeffrey Epstein, they may have a whole repository of information about what he was doing and detailed records of who he was doing it with. And so the subpoena does not have to be so narrowly tailored that it's just asking for this. The other thing, Lawrence, I just want to make a point of the real issue here that people shouldn't forget is the callousness of the Department of Justice and what it's doing. The victims had a right to notice. They had a right to be heard before any motion was made to make anything public. Their voices are statutorily required to be heard, and the judges vindicated that. But you have the Deputy Attorney General ignoring the law, and it really sends a red flag that this is being done for political purposes, that you would ignore the victims in a case like this. Presumably that is why the case was brought, was to vindicate their rights. And you're seeing that thrown away, and I think that's the real message from your last guess.
So to stay on the birthday book for another minute, is it possible that the estate has the original and that the Epstein files in the Justice Department have a copy of it?
Yes, absolutely, or vice versa. It is quite typical when I did investigations that we would, if necessary, have the original, but leave a copy, and sometimes it would be the reverse because we didn't need to have the original. Sometimes you want that for evidentiary value, but this is the kind of thing that it wouldn't be beyond the possibility, but I think it would be unlikely that prosecutors as adept as those in the Southern District of New York who had this case, that they would not have seen this already, even if they didn't take the original.
Yeah, and at the end, when the Epstein suicide happens, that case is over. Is there a point in processes like that where the prosecutors have possession of material that they've obtained, where they simply say, okay, we're handing this back because it has no evidentiary value for us. We're not using this in court, so we're going to give this original back?
That does happen, but it wouldn't have happened in this case at this point. Why? Because Ghislaine Maxwell still was going to trial, and her case is not over. There still is an appeals process. In fact, in a request for FOIA documents, that is for the public release of documents, there was litigation over that. The Department of Justice took the position that they couldn't turn things over because the Ghislaine Maxwell case was still ongoing because of that appeals process. While that is ongoing, you do not return evidence because you don't know if you may need it going forward. So I would find it highly unlikely that that material would have been turned back over to a private party at this point.
And just to underline your point, the procedure to get grand jury testimony released requires you to, first of all, get notice to possible victims in that testimony and make sure it's okay with them. And the Trump Justice Department didn't do that, which seems to make their attempt to get the grand jury information released just a legally phony attempt.
It is a complete phony red herring, in my view. As you pointed out in your initial introduction, any single day of the week, this minute, there are 30 gigabytes of investigative material that presumably a huge portion of that is not grand jury material. The government does not need court authorization to turn that over.
Andrew Weissman, I'm going to need you back here tomorrow night. Thank you very much